So maybe drilling in on the business value side of things, right? I said to me one of the top reasons or root causes for organizations struggling with strategy execution. It starts at the top with the C-suite, right? Not
Yeah.
understanding what strategy execution is, maybe thinking of it as program management on steroids, which it partly is, but that underserves or underdelivers what it actually does provide. But also they don't understand the impact, the true impact of suboptimal strategy execution capabilities, which to me is business value erosion, both the outright loss and delay or deferral of business value. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I think the C-suite gets a bad rap sometimes on not understanding, what strategy execution is, or we feel they don't appreciate it. Look, these are really smart people who are in those roles for a lot of reasons. And I actually, for many of my years of my career, I would kind of get like angry or like frustrated at why don't they understand the value? And I realized I wasn't telling the story right. Like I was probably the problem. Us as practitioners get so focused on what we're doing, kind of some of those points I made earlier, that we lose focus on who our audience is and how do we share it. So for them, I think they want this to work. Obviously, they have a very vested interest in it to work. But once again, I do think some C-suite overestimate that strategic alignment's happening. And I think they also underestimate the complexity of this entire life cycle. So I think they need to understand it, or we could help them better understand it. But we overload the heck out of them. Like I talk about in my book, cognitive load, information overload, data smog, brain fog, all these things, right? And we give them strategies and budgets and dashboards and rag ratings and go to green plans and budget updates and quarterly business reviews, and we just distract them with activity, right? So they don't really see and understand whether or not we're achieving the value. They just see a lot of activity and they can't really piece that story together. And then they're insulated, I think, a lot of times. As a portfolio leader, I often see a lot of executives in the respective areas tell how their effort is doing, but they're not really raising their hand to say when things aren't going well. And we don't do a good job in the center of really connecting those dots, as I said below, right? Or across the group and showing that unified, coordinated value of whether we're achieving the strategy and its intended outcomes. And these things are hard to measure, right? And because they're hard to measure, they don't feel it, they don't see the impacts of it, and the actual value erodes over time. And by the time we start to sometimes realize it, we're behind the competitive cycle, and that frustrates them even more. And then one thing I think that's challenging for C-suite executives is, look, they have short tenures. It's kind of like the football coaches I interviewed. Like most of them are there for like 3 years. So short-term pressure, especially at publicly traded companies, or if you're trying to stay in that job, you got to show results quickly. It is hard for them to be patient on these long-term realization of some of these major initiatives that you're doing across the organization. So I think that's where they really struggle to understand the real impact and see the value of the organization.